Welcome everyone to Cars and Guitars, the channel where anything goes as long as it has wheels or makes music. Today we're working on a Streetfighter Camaro. We bought a whole bunch of vintage air equipment from Summit Racing along with a Holley Mid-Mount Accessory Drive system that lets you mount the AC compressor, alternator, and power steering onto a very compact housing that incorporates the mounting brackets along with the water pump. It's a straightforward installation, so we'll focus on 2 or 3 areas that are most important, along with a review of the quality and features of the design. Today we'll get the cooling system drained, remove the old drive system components, and then tear into those boxes like a 7-year-old on Christmas Day, like a honey badger with a hornet's nest.
I assume at this point you don't want to hear my car make a pee-pee. We're going to go ahead and take all of those accessories off. They served us well for 20 years, actually. Other than that, Gen 1 small block, 500 horsepower. I know what you're saying. Go put an LS motor in it, but no. This motor kicks ass. We went ahead, took the front of the motor apart. Here's all the old equipment over here. Basically, you've got a really nice Howard Stewart water pump, one-wire alternator from Jones Racing Products. You can see the Jones Racing Products bracketry right there. The rest of that bracketry is part of the power steering system and the pulleys that go with it. This is a really nice system. It served us well for many years. It does not charge very well in traffic. So one of the benefits of switching over to this new system is that we'll have a higher amp alternator at 150 amps. I think this is probably a 50 amp, maybe a 60 amp. All right, let's look at the new stuff. Plan here is to go ahead and install a vintage air sure fit system. It's 68 Camaro, so they've got a kit designed specifically for it. And we went ahead and got their complete kit that includes the stuff that goes under the dashboard, which would be the main unit, and a whole bunch of brackets that holds the main unit in place. Then there are bulkheads for the hoses to pass through. There's a block off plate. It really is an amazing complete kit. You can see some defroster duct work here. But before we go ahead and install any of this, we're going to go ahead and get the front of the motor put back together. This is Holley's Mid-Mount front accessory drive system, and it's just beyond impressive. Some of it might seem typical. There's the compressor, which comes with a really cool bracket for adapting hoses. We have the main crank pulley, which just bolts directly to the damper. We have a brand new Holley alternator. I think it's really cool that Holley's casting their own alternators. Some hardware in the back, complete instructions, new power steering pump, very similar to the old pump, but the pulley's way bigger, which is cool. They even include covers for the tensioner and for the compressor. I think there's one also for the alternator. This right here is a late model LSLT style water pump. So this replaces the traditional small block Chevy water pump that's here on the floor. Reason for that is because the water pump housing now also becomes brackets, integrated brackets that support the AC, the alternator, and the power steering. To me, this is the coolest part of this whole project, is having one assembly that holds everything in real compact and tight to the center of the motor, and also doubles as a water pump. I don't even know how they made this casting. It is absolutely incredible. They must be using some kind of investment casting process or something that makes it to where they can make something as incredibly convoluted, complex as this in there. As castings go, this deal's pretty slick. So what we did before we went ahead and just installed everything is we mocked up the lower crank pulley and the water pump housing with the water pump, which has a self-contained pulley in place, just to make sure that there's correct pulley alignment between the water pump and the crank. Everything else indexes off of the water pump housing, so there's no doubt that the AC and the power steering and the alternator will index correctly to the water pump, but just that relationship between the water pump and the crank pulley is something that you should check. What we'll do now is just take everything back apart and paint the water pump housing silver. With the pulley alignment confirmed and the housing painted, we went ahead and bolted the assembly up onto the front of the engine for the last time. We put a little grease on the O-rings that fit between the mid-mount and the engine block, just to make sure they didn't move around during the installation process. Once the mid-mount is installed, bolting up the alternator is a piece of cake. If you prefer, you can install the power steering pump first, but the order doesn't really matter. Next up is the Sandin SD7 compact AC compressor, which mounts roughly in front of the passenger side cylinder head. Note that Holley went ahead and slotted the mounting bosses for the AC compressor on both sides to make it easy to get the hardware in place. It's just one more way that this kit has been designed for easy assembly. Hey, it's starting to look pretty good. The only thing left is to install the power steering pump, which is going to take some work since we have to press on the pulley and install the high pressure line first. Before you can press on the power steering pulley, you're going to need to install the high pressure line. It consists of a form tube and a banjo fitting. Pretty cool design that gets the fitting away from the top front of the pump so you don't have an 8-foot long power steering line sticking out of the top of the power steering pump. We ordered this pulley puller installer set from Performance Tool. It's part number W89708. It's available pretty much everywhere and it comes with a lifetime warranty. We got ours from Summit Racing. It's a good idea to coat all threads with anti-seize compound before you get started. I did not yet have a vise on my workbench when we shot this video, so this job is a little harder than it should be. If you're in the same situation, find a friend to hold the pump steady while you work wrenches. The top wrench and the pulley should not be rotating while tightening the wrenches. It gets progressively more difficult to press the pulley onto the shaft. The goal here is for the pulley flange to be perfectly flush with the pump shaft. Because we are obsessed with pulley alignment, we left ours a bit shy with the goal of finishing the process on the engine. In hindsight, I could have pressed the pulley onto the power steering pump shaft about halfway on my workbench, then bolted the whole unit onto the engine and pressed the pulley on the rest of the way. Basically a 3,400 pound vise. As for the pump install, Holley designed large windows into the pulley to make it easy to pass through and tighten the pump hardware, even with the alternator in place. We are almost done. Back to my pulley alignment obsession, remember that I pressed the pulley on just shy of flush. I can say with reasonable certainty now that Holley got it right when designing the system. The pulleys line up. We just needed to press the power steering pulley flush with the shaft in keeping with the instructions. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. I have a Scat forge crank, an ATI damper, and a thick Edelbrock cast aluminum timing chain cover. None of these companies talk to each other when designing parts. So the possibility of a mismatch or misalignment is very real. At the end, it never hurts to mock parts up and check alignment here in the wonderful world of hot rodding. It'll save you time in the long run. As you can see, we've gone ahead and connected the heater lines. The wiring for the fan switch. We've also wired up the alternator, which is nice and clean. Follows the line of the intake manifold and the valve cover to the back of the engine to the firewall. And you can see the power steering pump with the high pressure line in the back, return line at the bottom, and of course, pulleys all line up nicely. Overall, I'd have to say it's one of the best engineered products that I've ever installed. And that's it. We really hope you enjoyed our video on Holley's Mid-Mount Accessory Drive system. Thanks for watching.